In this example, I'm just going to go through the sort of process that you might take if you were creating something like this simple concept model. So what I want to do is end up with a model that looks a bit like this, that's trimmed with history on it. So if I go and pick a surface, for example, and start moving CVs around, I should be able to do this sort of update to it so that I can get a quick idea of how these surfaces interact with each other. And so to set this up, what I've done is I've created a full width model. So if we look at these layers here, so these are the trimmed surfaces, they're actually symmetrically displayed there. But if we go back to the original surfaces, so here's the original surfaces, you can see they're all intersecting each other, they cross over the center line. And the reason for using symmetry on these surfaces is that we can guarantee continuity across the center then, very simply. So one of the things we do have to make sure is that all of those surfaces that do cross the center are symmetric. So you can see by this symbol here that that seems to be the case. And if not, we can always add it later if we've made a mistake. The base surfaces, the ones under the vehicle, there's no need to make them symmetric unless you're going to change them or you think you're going to move individual CVs, which in this case is not likely. So I don't need to put symmetry on those. I could do if I wanted to. So if we're starting off with this, the first thing we can do is we can create a dummy surface across the center. So this is this Y0 dummy surface, and that will give us a lot of intersects with everything, and so that we can create that half model but without actually doing a trim convert on the model and losing the benefits of the symmetry. So to put curves on surface, there's some intersects. I just pick everything and then deselect that surface there, and we go into surface edit and we say intersect. Now we don't really need it on the center surface, so if I put on first surface instead and say go, then it creates all of these curves on surface. Then we can get rid of that or hide that surface there. Now when I come to trim this, so I'm going to go to trim, I want to make sure I've got history on, trim divide history, which I have. So I'm going to start just trimming this one piece at a time to that center surface. So it's just a way of creating a half model, and we can then trim it back. The surfaces that don't cross the center line, not like this, the side glass there, don't end up with a curve on surface, of course. But we don't have to worry about that. Just by picking it, it'll realize that, the software will realize that, and we don't have to worry. So by trimming these one at a time, it just starts to reduce the size of the problem so that we can start to home in on what we want to do. Now when it comes down to this stage, it starts to get a little bit more tricky as to deciding which surfaces intersect which, and so maybe we can take, for example, that wheel arch there, and we can then find a set of surfaces that intersect that. So now we want both surfaces on because we're going to be trimming both sides. So we're going to trim it to there. So you just have to go round and pick individual surfaces which cross over that. So the body side there, and I think that's about it. So if you've left one out, it doesn't actually matter. So you can see this one's got a trim there. Again, we've got history on there. Now this lower surface here, we actually want to get rid of this bit but keep this bit and this bit. So we want to say keep that bit and that bit, so we end up with a little bit each side. And then we just need to go around all of these surfaces. I mean, sometimes you can find like that surface and that surface obviously intersect the top bit, so that would be quite easy to pick up on. And it's just useful, I think, to just trim it as we go so that we get, in general, an idea of where it's going. Now this one here, that one there, we haven't intersected with the roof, so we need to do that. So that's highlighted that straight away. It's something that we need to do. So now we should be able to trim that back. and then we go around all of the rest of them, just go through the whole model until we've got to this trimmed version. So once we've got the trimmed version in there, obviously you want to save this at regular intervals to make sure it's okay, and we just want to make sure as well that we've actually got the history on. So by picking some of the CVs and just playing around with them, we can see whether we've put the history on or not, and then we can go and experiment with the shapes. And the beauty of this is that it's relatively easy to see what's going on in reality and without intersecting surfaces, so we can get an idea of how things interact. And you sometimes find that this sort of thing happens. Now in that case, because it's gone above there, we can just take that surface, we can untrim it, and we can just extend it. So if I extend that out a bit, and then we just retrim it. So I've got a hotkey here, T, for that, and I can retrim that. And provided we don't exceed the limits of the intersects there, we can carry on modifying it. Obviously if I bring that up even further, then it's going to break again when it gets beyond that point. But you can adjust the geometry underneath, and obviously you can do lower the mouse sensitivity or raise the mouse sensitivity to refine that, and it's great to be able to see how the intersects of these surfaces work in reality without the interference of intersecting surfaces, which are really difficult to see. And we can also put on the symmetry as I had before, so that you can get a real great idea of what this model is going to look like as a block model.